welcome to another episode on the Emigrated podcast. My name is Emeka, your regular host. I am the man, the myth, the legend. Welcome to today's episode, where we're honored to have a truly inspiring guest with us. Imagine leaving your home country, facing the immense challenges of immigration, and then rising through perseverance and dedication to become a key leader in your new homeland. Our guest today has done just that. Hailing from Somalia, this individual has navigated the complexities of adapting to life in Canada while embracing his identity and culture, and ultimately pursuing a path of public service. Today, he serves as a member of the Alberta Legislative Assembly, a role that represents not just his constituency, but also the resilience and aspirations of immigrants across this province and country. In this episode, we'll dive into his remarkable journey, how he overcame personal and systemic challenges, the lessons he has learned along the way, and his vision for a more inclusive Alberta. We'll explore what it means to be an immigrant in politics, the significance of representation, and how his background shapes his leadership today. So, sit back and prepare to be inspired by a story of resilience, hope, and the power of community. This is an interview you won't want to miss. My guest today is, drumroll, Sharif Haji, a member of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta representing the riding of Edmonton-Decore. Prior to serving with the Legislative Assembly, Mr. Haji was the Executive Director for the Africa Centre from 2019 to 2023. He held various positions with the Government of Alberta through 2014 to 2019, including Manager of Alberta's Provincial Affordable Housing Strategy and Alberta's Primary Healthcare Strategy as a policy analyst. He also worked as the programs coordinator for the Edmonton Multicultural Coalition. He was born in Somalia and holds both an undergraduate degree from the University of South Africa and a master's degree in public health with specialization on global health from the University of Alberta. Mr. Haji is married and has 3 children. Thank you, Honorable Member, for agreeing to sit down with us on Emigrated podcast. Could you please say hello to our guests?
Hi, Emeka. It's a pleasure to sit down with you today and have a conversation. And to your listeners, it's an opportunity to connect stories of our life, which informs the future, not only us, but the history, but as well as the future of our generations.
Thank you. I have to say this. It's important that I say this. This interview is happening because 2 weeks ago I had someone introduce my podcast to Mr. Haji, and today I'm sitting in his office having the interview. I think that speaks a lot to how accessible you are. It's very, very important that politicians are accessible. And personally, I haven't experienced anything like this before. I don't know Mr. Haji personally. We've met briefly in times past, but I don't know him personally for him to sit down and do this with me. That's the difference between someone who actually wants to do his job and others who just want to, take positions of authority. So thank you for making this happen.
It's my pleasure.
All right. I will just go into asking you questions and you provide answers. What does it feel like to be the first person of East African descent to be elected to the Legislative Assembly of Alberta and the first Black Muslim elected to this position? I know, me, a lot of people can manufacture all kinds of firsts. for instance, me, I can say I am the first second-born son of my father. You know, that's I know I manufactured it, but it's not real.
Yeah.
But you have two firsts that are outstanding and as real as firsts can be. So my question to you, was this something you set out to achieve the day you woke up and said, I'm going abroad? Or was it something you achieved after you landed in Canada and said, that's an opportunity, that's something I would like to do?
It's a good question. When I was coming here, I didn't anticipate what my life could be. Landing in a very, very cold country. I was not lucky to land here in May or June when everything's green. I came here on January. Wow, when everything is white. And in my first couple of weeks, every morning I wake up, I was thinking that it's gonna melt tomorrow. So it was kind of like a shock to me, and I felt it's a very, very cold place.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered how and why people live here. But I didn't know how warm the people of the province are. And that took me a bit of time to understand. As you mentioned in your introduction, when I was studying, like I right away registered to do my master's here. And when I went to school, I specialized on global health, which means I wanted to right away go back after I finish and do international development work, specifically around global health. But I didn't know this place is a magnet and it can keep you stay here. It wasn't part of my plan to run for a public office, but it gradually happened. And
oh, wow.
And I believe in the fact that be hopeful and you can be who you want to be and you can do whatever you want to do. It's just a matter of perseverance and having hope, the combination of the two. Yeah, so to answer your question in a short form, it wasn't something that I have thought of. It wasn't something that came to my mind in my first 5 years. Wow. But it was something that came to my mind when I started working in the government. And I have seen some of the systems and the structures that we build here is based on perspectives of the people that build those structures and systems. And the perspectives of those people are informed by their lived experience. And I thought I probably need to take when I say the lived experiences of many who are like me in this province to inform how those policies, systems, and structures are made. So I didn't come with it. I didn't think of the first 5 years for sure. I didn't even think the first 7 years for sure, but it gradually came into my attention that something to consider.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you a business leader who wants to make a difference in the world? You need more than fluency in strategy, marketing, or even sustainability. You must understand how business interacts with society. Hi, I'm the host of Business and Society with Senthil Nathan podcast. In the 30-minute fortnightly episodes, I promise to bring you the best ideas to develop you as a leader who can help shape business as a force for good. Join me as I discuss with some of the world's leading thinkers to understand the role of business in society. Subscribe to the Business and Society with Senthil Nathan podcast.
Interesting. I echo your surprise because I came in May 2016.
Oh, you were lucky.
Yeah, it was 10 degrees, and I took a walk and I came back with frozen fingers.
Yeah.
And people were laughing at me when I said it. The man I was living with, when I told him, he laughed, and I'm like, "Why is this funny?" He's like, "It's not cold."
Yeah.
I said, "Wait, what?" This is not cold. 10 degrees is nothing.
Yeah.
And then in December, I understood what he meant.
Yeah.
It's okay. But thank you for that. A politician that answers questions directly. Interesting. Okay. What inspired you? I mean, you already kind of answered this, but I'd still ask it so you can expand.
Yeah.
What inspired you to pursue a career in politics? And how did your experiences in Somalia shape your goals? What specific obstacles did you encounter on your path to becoming an MLA, and how did you overcome them?
It's a loaded question. I think the first part is what inspired you.
Yes.
It really can't pinpoint on one thing, but what I can say is that I knew that I don't see like I still don't call myself a politician, right? Like that still didn't sink in my head. It's not because of there's nothing wrong with it. It's just still didn't sink in my head. I still see myself as somebody who is a servant who serves for in a role that was entrusted. And in terms of an inspiration, I think a lot of it is to do with, as I said before, what we as community, as an immigrant population, as who come with various different perspectives and lives. We have diversity in terms of religion, we have diversity in terms of lived experience, we have diversity in terms of race. So I think all of those and how policies are made is what inspired me. I've always felt like my lived experience should be taken as an opportunity to inform for future, to inform what needs to happen. And I give you an example. When I was working for the government in health in 2017, I want to say 2017, I was still leading the primary healthcare strategy for the province, and then the government at the time announced provincial affordable housing strategy. I saw the news release, it hit in my inbox. I looked at it. I was like, this is interesting. Couple of months after, there was a posting that came out that was saying that the department is looking for a manager who will lead the affordable housing strategy on a secondment of 2 years, which means that you can take 2 weeks your current job and do the 2 years there, and then after that come back to your previous role, or equivalent to something that looks like to your previous role in case of restructuring or whatever happens. So this technicality put aside. But what stuck in my head was that when I came, I lived with my wife and my children in social housing. The government at the time helped me because of I am a family, I don't have a job, I am new to the country, and I'm full-time in school doing my master's. So we lived in the social housing, which we were paying 30% of what we make, cheapest that you can get. In terms of conditions of the housing, was not the greatest, but did it help me? Of course, 100%, because both me and my wife were back in school. After we finished, I finished in April, I started working for the provincial government in May. I moved out of the social housing on, I believe, October, within 3-4 months.
Of getting a job.
So when this affordable housing strategy was announced, I kind of felt like, you know what? I lived in those housings. I have interacted the system. I think I have value to add by leading that file. And I applied the file, and that's how I led the file. So those are some of the, like, I always feel like my lived experience is what I need to complement to my professional and educational piece. And in the combination of those two, I feel is something valuable that the province will benefit from. So that was one of the key inspirational things. Second piece, Somalia prepared me. I think a lot of people will agree with me from immigrant populations, prepared me to be resilient.
Absolutely.
And prepared me to not take this is impossible as an excuse. I was one of the generations that were very unlucky because the country collapsed when I was still in high school. So before a new system was established, like all universities were gone. There was no single university in the country, destroyed. If I think back now, I will think of everything is gone. So what do you do? But that never stopped me. I was kind of like always hopeful that there will be an opportunity somewhere. So through that, I got a scholarship just because of I have worked very hard. I have people noticed like something special that I that didn't hold me back, that I was learning online stuff, which wasn't an internet thing. It was reading materials has to be shipped to you. And you have to travel the exam. I have to travel the exams from Somalia to Kenya, where I have to do the exam every time that I need to do an exam. But I would say that people who went with me, not even going far in elementary schools, people who went with me in high schools, none of them did post-secondary education. And I'm not saying a class, the entire students of a school that you could say about in the thousands, none of them. So that prepared me the resilience, prepared me that there is, like, with hope you can be who you want, and you can do what you want. I came in, and with that resiliency, I landed in January 24th. I wanted to do my master's in public health. The application intake was closing on January 31st. What that meant was within 6 days in the country, I have to submit something, or else I have to wait a year.
Right.
So I didn't take waiting a year as an excuse, as an option. I didn't get out of the house. I think I got out of the house to get my social insurance number and my healthcare card. My wife took me the first day to do that, and then after that, focus on the application. And I submitted. I was like, okay, what will they say? No? And then I would say, why do you say no? Then the conversation starts, right?
I am in.
Yeah, like, let's talk about why. And that happened. In March, they got back to me and they said no. And I was, based on the pool of applicants, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, why? The positive note here is they didn't say you're ineligible. Okay, I'm eligible. I'm in the pool. It's based on the space and people who have applied. So I have a case to make here. Then I said, I need to meet with someone to talk about this. Well, we booked it, met with, and then I did wait. I started as special student that's taking some courses as I wait my applications so that those can be transferred so I don't lose time, right? So basically it was those are some of the challenges and obstacles that you meet, but I didn't take no as an option, and I didn't see things in a negative perspective. I've always seen things, it will work.
Yeah. Positive mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, interesting. I can relate with your story that, from our backgrounds as immigrants, there's nothing you're going back to. You either succeed or you succeed. There's nothing else other than succeed. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that leads me to my next question. A lot of us immigrants come to Canada, and the culture shock is brutal in the difference with culture, institutions, expectations, and all that. What was it like for you when you came to Canada?
I have a very, very good friend of mine. I wish she listens this podcast. Her name is Roxanne Felix. I met with Roxanne when I was 3 months in the country. So I explained to her what my background is, what I'm doing, and what I wanted to do. And out of nowhere, she agreed to meet with me. And she was very, very in terms of considerate in terms of where we will meet. She booked me at Stanley Library, which is not as it is now. It was renovated, the old one. And she did it because I was new, and she knew that I needed public transit, accessibility, and all those kind of things. So we met there. It was at a coffee shop. And my first culture shock is what I'm talking about. So Roxanne, it was a lunch hour. That's the only time that she could. She was very, very busy individual, wonderful person. And then she pulled out her lunch and started having her lunch. And I was like, oh, this doesn't happen where I come from. It's usually people will say, oh, are you eating, or do you mind to eat, or they will offer you, or whatever.
Right.
But in a busy life, right? Like that's kind of okay. Let me meet with Sharif and then give whatever I can while I am taking my lunch. So I shared the story with her afterwards. But the thing is that like those small things.
Yeah.
My first when I started my school, it was difficult to even understand, not the content. A lot of people start thinking of the content of the learning curriculum that you're doing, like whether it is science or whatever it is. Are you capable of understanding the concept of the academic aspect of it? But no, the class culture in itself was something else to me.
I haven't gone to school in Canada, so
my first terms were the worst. A lot of it is to do that you're navigating two things at the same time. You're navigating the educational piece, but you're also navigating the systems, the culture, and the structure that is in place, which is not something that you studied before, right? So that was kind of something that I struggled with in my first few. I would say my first 2 terms in school.
Wow.
I still didn't understand, because I came from where students talk a lot to each other, where the students share a lot, where students work as, so to speak, as a family. Where you can ask anyone in terms of what things are. Hey, did you do this assignment? How did you go around? And all those kind of things. So it was completely different, where the instructor, the professor, or the teacher, whatever title you give it to, will provide an assignment based on the online platform, and then instruction is there, and then nobody talks about it. And then everybody knows what they're supposed to do, because that's how it works in high schools before you go to post-secondary education, right? So it was kind of a lot of those things have been challenging, and also trying to find what you call quote unquote a community, right? Like I hail from a Muslim faith, so before I came, I started searching around. Okay, how do I find a faith community here? I started searching around. Okay, as a black person, how do I find a black community here? And then to that point, I was trying to see how this is a new land, and you need to navigate through this. Who can you lean on to? Who can you talk to? Who can understand from the perspectives where you're coming from? So those are some of the things that one has to do. For me, I had a family friend who was here that I asked, and I said, take me where people meet. And that has been my way to navigate through the system. I went to the Africa Center at the time. Later on, I became the executive director of the Africa Center. But that time, I applied to volunteer. They interviewed me, and they kind of figured out I'm new to the country and I have no knowledge of the land, of the new land here, and I don't know much. There's no much that I can offer. They ended up not coming back to me at all. So it's fascinating how I look back, and on the day that I walked in there as an executive director, I thought about it, and I was like, interesting. Here I am.
Wow. So, if I understand what you've said now, let's assume I landed in Edmonton today as a newcomer. Can I go to the Africa Center, walk through their door and say, hey, I'm a newcomer. What can you guide me? Can you point me to, a community or even a church where I can find like-minded people? Is that possible?
It is some of the things that I have developed since I like not in Africa Center, but in me. That's something that I developed, like being open and accessible to people, because you never know,
right,
what these people can be. Like, nobody knew that I will be in the legislature, and I didn't know, and it wasn't my plan. I happened to be among the over 100 years ago, since this province was established, there were I was one of the less than 1,000 people who have been elected to sit into that legislature. Actually, they give a number each, so I fall into 960 something. So the reason why I'm bringing up that is that you don't know. Like, the person that is walking into your door could be the premier tomorrow.
Absolutely. Great point. Wow.
And in my time at the Africa Center, anyone that says I'm new, I've always tried to be accessible and give time to that individual, because you don't know.
Yeah. When I came, I landed in May, and this man who I didn't know at the time, Jacob Atasang, he's Cameroonian.
Yeah.
My sister connected me with him, and having not met me, he drove to the airport, took me to his house in Clairview, and he sheltered me, fed me for 3 months. He was the one who I leaned on for everything, gave me advice. I was finding, some kind of jobs, and he would say, nah, I don't want you to do that.
Yes.
And eventually I started to find my feet. We went house hunting. He helped me find a house, and I still remember the day I left his house, and he said to me, I asked him, how do I repay you for this? And he said, you don't have to repay me, you just have to pay it forward.
Yeah.
If you ever see anyone who was in your situation, do the same that I have done to you, and I will be glad wherever I am.
Yeah.
And I have lived by that. If I see anybody who says, "Oh, I'm new to Canada," I'll be like, "What do you need? You would need this, you would need that, and this is my phone number. You can call if you ever have any questions." Because here in Canada, information is power. Someone just giving you information that points you in the right direction is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's a lot of opportunities where you don't know, and you're just sitting there and you're just, not availing yourself of those opportunities. So,
yeah. And some of the societies that come from all over the world come with a different kind of different ways of being and living. If you came from an oral society, you really, really need that. Like my community is very, it's an oral society. It's people who talk to people. So that conversations and like talking to people, like actually made a lot of, let me use an example for Somali communities, thrive through struggles. A lot of it is kind of like not hoarding information, but sharing the information.
It's a kind of therapy, but we in Africa, we don't see it that way. When we come back in the evening and someone, maybe an hour after you've come back from work, they knock on your door, "Hey, how was your day?"
Yeah.
And for the next 2 hours, you're just talking and chatting.
It's not interesting that you see a lot of people that when, I don't know in which part of Nigeria were you
from? The east, southeast.
Yeah. So I don't know from the southeast of Nigeria if people talk to strangers. But where I come from, people talk to strangers, right? Like you're walking on the street, I'm walking on the street, so I have to say hi.
Yeah,
it's a culture.
We say we do that.
Yeah, and I think like I was still doing that when I came here. To the level, weird. Yeah, to the level where it felt like people started thinking I'm crazy, right?
Having lived in, even now that you say it, I'd be like, what does he want?
Yeah. What's next?
No, I don't
I'm
want
not selling anything.
I just want to chat. Let's just talk. And that's how friendships are built.
Yeah.
Because from that day, you see the person tomorrow, "Hey, how are you?" And, well, thank you. Those are profound moments that you shared. And, okay, now we'll get into the meat of the matter.
Okay, let's do that.
Many of us read or watch the news about politics and politicians. And the one thing that we may say is universal, or not, I don't know if that's the case with you, is that from the public perspective, we ask why politicians seem to be removed from reality. I mean, there's outlandish things we hear them say and we're like, wow, are you living in the same country with us?
Yeah.
But how do you stay in touch with your constituents to make sure their voices are heard with their concerns and pains addressed?
Well, I think it's quite a challenge that making sure that I represent a constituency that has significant diversity in all aspects of human beings, whether it is diversity in race, diversity in lived experience, diversity in age, diversity in beliefs, diversity in gender, diversity in all of those things,
education.
In socioeconomics, in education, all of those aspects, and many that I haven't mentioned now. So what that means is that I don't have the ability to understand all, but what I remind myself is that I should have the ability to listen each of those perspectives and what it means. So what I do in terms of staying in touch, one thing is the social media. I do have a monthly newsletter that's electronic that goes out every month. Basically, it is my regular update that I provide to my constituency. I'm one of those representatives that if I don't have a session in the House, in the legislature, I come to my constituency office, whether I have a busy schedule or not. I could work from home, but I choose not to. I come to the office regularly every day. And then the other thing that I do is, like, of course, social media, but I don't think that people approach it the same way. My approach to it is interact with genuine people who ask questions or want to reach out to you on my social media, which a lot of the time different platforms connect with different populations, but also respond to communities in terms of, in a given day, I may end up going to 5 different events.
Wow.
If it is of summer and it's a weekend, it can be quite a lot. And then respond to people's calls, like when they ask you, they want to see you or talk to you, be available. And I think those are some of the touch points that help. And I do go to the doors randomly on every Wednesday and ask people if there is anything that they want to bring to my attention. So on every Wednesday, between my volunteers join me between 5 and 7:30.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, we go to the doors, we talk to people who live in the ridings, and they say, okay, these are some issues that this government is not doing well, that we want you to speak to. This is some of the things that you have not spoken to, we want you to speak to. So, yeah, and it also gives me my steps, right? Like, you're sitting all the day. It's very good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, let me whisper that, why haven't I seen my MLA at my door? Anyway, I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
But
I think there could be some who will say that even in my, because like I have approximately $17,000, right? So I can only do so much.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, what does an MLA do? Like, what is it? Because what you're saying sounds like you don't have an actual job description. You're just available and, okay, here I am. What can I do for you? And they could talk from school fees to bus ride to grocery, just all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you have to listen? Wow.
You have to listen complaints. That's the issue, right? The thing here is that in any given job, you have, I've been in jobs, in any given job, you have one boss. Or if you are in an executive position, you may have like 11 bosses who are your board of directors, that if you are a CEO. In an MLA position, the electorates are your bosses, people who vote for you.
And they're in thousands.
So in this electorate, I have approximately 50,000 voters.
Wow.
So you assume all are your bosses.
Yeah.
And each of them gives you a different list of job descriptions.
Jeez.
Or at least that they don't give you, they expect.
One job is just,
they expect.
Each person gives a list.
Each person has a list in their mind, and they will say to you, why didn't you do this?
And you're expected to solve all of them, hypothetically.
Yeah, the expectation is that you either address it, speak to it, respond to it, or clarify it. You have to have some sort of a response to many of those.
Wow. Okay, here's a real life situation that I am personally involved in. I have a condo in Beverly area. So a few weeks ago, I got this email that says we're supposed to pay $48,000 for some construction, renovation issue, things they were supposed to address. And of course, nobody has 48,000 sitting around, especially now in Canada. But we were looking at, things, and we found out this condo board has not had an AGM for 6 years, in violation of the Condo Act and even the bylaws. That's one. Two, I don't remember being called to a meeting where a special resolution was agreed upon by the owners.
Yeah.
To say, okay, here is what we need to do, here's the amount we need to spend, this is why we need to do it, and things like that.
Yeah.
So between not having an AGM and not having a special resolution to agree on what we need to do, I can personally already say that the board is acting illegally.
Yeah.
Now, as an MLA, if I come to you with a concern like that, how can you be of assistance?
I will refer back to two routes to go. One is refer back to what the existing legislation around that, tenancy dispute and related stuff are. The second thing is that if there is a provincial responsibility has to step in because of there is a violation of certain things, and here and there the enforcement bodies are not acting to it. So your MLA should either speak to it or write to someone who have the responsibility to do something. We are the provincial level, so it should be anything within that provincial level. Let's say it's a minister issue, so bring the minister's attention to that and say that, hey, minister, this is your area, this is my constituent, this is some of the challenges that he or she or they are facing, and then deal with that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is like we get quite a significant amount of I get asked a lot of amount of things that are not in my jurisdictional responsibilities, and I don't want to step into a different jurisdiction. So it will be more of my office will be liaising with those other jurisdictions. So a good example will be, let's say, traffic-related stuff on the roads.
Wow.
Which will be
really
a municipal issue. Somebody will say that the road in front of my house, the speed limit is 30. People always drive there 50 or 60. This has been going on. It's putting risk to my children when they're crossing there. Like, just hypothetical example, right? So my role will be write to the councillor and say that, hey, councillor, so and so, the intersection of that road, this is the conditions. Can you please connect with the residents in the area and then see what you need to do or what you could do.
Interesting. Wow, I'm getting enlightened more and more as you speak to this, because I don't know what an MLA does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of do.
But I think in general what we do is you could divide into 3 areas. Be a voice of your constituencies on specific issues. It could be health, it could be education, it could be housing, it could be cost of living, like all of those things. That's one aspect, right? The second aspect is contributing to the lawmaking or legislative making processes in the legislature, so that you're debating on that and providing an input, or you're tabling a new law. I give you an example of last session. I put a motion to the table in the House, which I said that the government, when new immigrants come to the country, there are professions that are regulated. A good example would be an engineer, or it would be a lawyer. It's a regulated profession. When they get the regulatory bodies and they are certified and they are given the license to practice, still people are facing challenges because of the companies that were supposed to hire are asking Canadian experience.
Exactly.
So I tabled a motion saying that companies should be prohibited to ask Canadian experience where it's deemed unnecessary.
Understandable.
So that can become then a law that will stop companies to require that, which will remove a barrier for many who want to end up in the role. So in such a situation, it doesn't only serve for your constituent, but it serves anyone. Albertans. So those are what happens in terms of the lawmaking processes. And then if you are in government, you're bringing up, on the side of the government, you're bringing solutions to an existing. We're building schools, we're doing this. But if you're in the opposition, one of the things that I do is like holding a government accountable on a specific file. Session will start end of this month, and I think one of the things that I am tasked to be asking more the government questions around would be cost of living and affordability, and what is the government doing around that.
Absolutely.
So you could divide into those three, like lawmaking, holding the government accountable, and representing the voices of the constituencies that you represent in the House.
Interesting. There was something you touched on that I wanted to. It's a central part of some of the questions I have. How is it that I have 3 university degrees? I have a BSc in microbiology. I have an MSc in food microbiology. I am a certified medical laboratory assistant.
Yeah.
When I came to Canada in 2016, these 3 degrees were fantastic to bring me here.
Yeah.
But they were nothing when I set out to get a job.
Yeah.
What can be done from a legislative point of view? I mean, you've talked about it, but if you can expatiate more on that, from a legislative point of view, to ensure that with all these qualifications I have, I should be able to come here. If it's an exam I can write to show that, hey, I might not have studied in Canada, but I am as good as anyone who studied in Canada.
Our system I will say it's very complex. It's easy to identify issues, but very complex to address the problem head on.
Okay.
Your qualification is assessed when you're coming here for immigration purposes.
Oh, wow.
It's different. It's different, the purpose of qualification assessment. For putting you into a job assessment is a different thing.
I never thought about it like that.
It's coming here. It's for qualification assessment for immigration.
So I am qualified to come here based on this, but getting a job, okay, you need to
find a different, like, it doesn't, your assessment of the, like when you're coming, the assessment that is made is, we want skilled people. That's what is assessed. And that's a broader term, right? Like, so is this person skilled? Then qualification is assessed at an immigration level. Yes, this person is skilled. Remember, people come in different categories. People come category of economic category, which means that your skills are assessed, or humanitarian category, which will be like what my wife came here as a refugee here, which will be like a humanitarian ground.
Yes.
So when you are coming, you are assessed from an economic perspective. What includes economic participation and productivity that we need to have. What includes is your age is factored, your qualification is factored. Then when they're doing your qualification, they're assessing it for immigration purposes, that you are a skilled person. That doesn't mean that you'll get a job. It's completely different when you land here.
Yeah. Wow, it's. I never thought about it this way, because I've always wondered, it's good to come. Why isn't it good to get a job? But now that you've just
a lot of people say that there's a lot of medical doctors who drive taxis here, right?
Yeah.
Like which is the horror and like saddening story about Canada. But a lot of people don't understand that those doctors were assessed from immigration perspective. but not
from
being
a healthcare
being a
employee.
doctor when you come here. That's not the case.
Okay, wow, that's something I'll take back to my community and explain better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But a lot of the challenge that I find is like there's not a lot of conversations around this within. Like even when I was at the Africa Center, I haven't seen a lot of conversation that happens around. We talk about it, and remember I said I always focus on the like being optimistic, right? Like we talk about it with the negative lenses and nuances, rather than thinking of why is this happening and what do we need to do
to fix it.
A lot of the time, unfortunately, I don't see, and I've been a lot of conversations. I rarely see those conversations. Rarely.
Wow. So is this something the bill you talked about could address, especially from, because I know there were jobs I had interviews with, and not having Canadian work experience was what stopped me from getting those jobs.
And some of those work experiences are necessary, but there is no rules that will prohibit companies to do that.
Oh,
right. The rules that are put in place, regulatory bodies, reasons why some jobs are professionalized and licensed. There are many reasons, but one of the reasons is protecting the public trust, protecting the public safety. Those are some of the key issues why professions are regulated.
Right.
Let's say that you come from Somalia or you come from Nigeria and you used to be a locksmith. A locksmith is a locksmith in any part of a where we come from. Government doesn't interfere that. It's not a regulated role, a position, or it's not a regulated profession, let me put it that way. But when you come here, it's a regulated profession.
Right.
And the reason is because of the public safety is protected here. You don't want anyone to come and tell you they are a locksmith. They will tell you they will fix your lock, and tomorrow the safety of your house is in danger. Would you held accountable that?
Right.
But once that is moved, right? Like once the public safety protection is addressed through licensing,
okay,
then asking that person to have a Canadian experience is just a barrier.
Because already you can certify that they know how to change.
You've already signed off saying that
they know how to change.
Emeka can
fix
locks.
Why does he need to have experience working in Canada?
And then you go to a locksmith company, and then they will I'm just using as an example here, right? And then if they say that you need to have a Canadian experience, no, technically you're not. You shouldn't, because
that makes sense.
Because you have demonstrated you could do the work.
That makes sense. Okay. Now that we're touching immigration, the question today in Canada, I think we've gone past whether immigrants will come to Canada or not, or Alberta or not.
Yeah.
They will come. The question now is, how many can we absorb, and are we prepared to support them as much as possible? From a legislative point of view, what can be done to ensure that immigrants who come to Alberta have access to affordable housing, education, healthcare? I ask this because you have a background in affordable housing and education in public health. It's a nuanced question, but I will start by saying Canada has a system in terms of how many immigrants will come. It's demographers usually look into in terms of our growth, birth rate,
the aging population, and all those kind of things are taken into factors, and we, based on that, we allow certain number of population of immigrants to the country to keep our economy, to keep our productivity the same level it is, without jeopardizing or risking our quality of life, or public services, and all those kind of things. So this has been a topic of conversation lately, and I guess that's one of the reasons why you're asking the question. Yeah. We cannot have the conversation without having the context into the equation.
Yes.
So the context that we are in is Canada is supposed to bring a percentage of population of immigration. It could be 0.1, and I'll just throw it 0.3 or 0.1, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever those numbers from a percentage to absolute number could be, were not brought in during the 3 years of the pandemic. The 3 years of pandemic delayed a lot of immigrants not to come.
Right.
After it was lifted, then Canada has to meet its target to fast track in terms of bringing new immigrants. But what happened was that there was no concurrent work that was done at the different levels of the provincial and the municipal levels in terms of preparedness, in terms to bring those immigration or immigrant populations. So because of that, it's kind of like a truncated now, but you will have an influx. But over time, if you look into the long-term perspective, over time that will disappear. But currently, it's kind of like, it's overflowing, and people are reacting to that.
Okay.
What needs to happen is building the infrastructure that is needed. You talked about housing. One of the key reasons of why we cannot build enough houses is a delay of 3 years of no constructions. We've not built houses for years. Then after that, when we needed to build, we needed to build as quickly as possible.
Manpower.
And you need people to build.
And they weren't coming during the pandemic.
And they have to come in now. And you might think of, okay, you don't need this number of construction workers. No. It's not only construction. It is every aspect. The supply chains, the logistics, the constructions, the planning aspect of it. Like all of those things require the manpower to move it fast. So that is where we are. In terms of schools, we have not built those schools. In terms of let's say affordable housing, we have not built those houses. I used to work in the social housing sector when I was with the government, and like the riding that I represent here, like for example, I can locate where the social housings are. There are 4 different areas where we have quite a number of concentrated social housings. Those were built in the 1970s.
Oh.
We're talking about 50 years ago.
Right. Wow, that's true.
And now, within those 50 years, we haven't built those houses. You're talking about the city, the population of the city may have doubled.
True.
But we haven't doubled the infrastructure that was needed to support itself. And that's why you have high number of homelessness on the streets. That's why you have long list of waiting for social housing. That's why you have, like all of those things kind of are built up
over time.
And now here you are, and we're facing the consequence of, like, we just delayed the problem.
So it'll take time.
It would
to go away.
It will take time. It will take time to go away.
Okay, I like that answer. A common misconception we have as humans is that there are elite people and there's us, the commoners. With this mindset, we distance ourselves from people we consider to be elite, so we can complain they aren't accessible. What are the common misconceptions about the role of an MLA, and how do you address those?
I think it depends where people come from. Some people come from where you cannot access your elected representative. It's completely different here. Your elected representative are supposed to be accessible to you.
Okay.
And if they are not, then they're doing the business wrong. Because we're given a term. After the term, we have to go back and ask our electorates to consider us again. So on the basis of that, I shouldn't be showing up at your door when I need a vote. I should be available and accessible to you as much as possible. Like we only have limited time, and we have a number of electorates, but we have to make the effort to be available and accessible to people as much as we can. So it's a misconception that they are different. No, they're servants, and a servant should not be an elite.
So we have to, as the constituents, make efforts to bridge that gap. We have to approach, because you are one person, you can't reach $17,000.
Yeah.
So if I have a problem, I should make a move and say, hey, I came here, knocked on your door, and I said, oh, it's open, you can come in. It was easy. I didn't see any policemen or orderlies or this or that. It was just like walking into a normal office. I have to admit, I'm Nigerian, where I come from. It wouldn't be this easy to walk into an MLA's office. I have to jump through hoops to make. And I think you're right. We come here with that mindset, and then we just stay away. And I can't access it.
You should call, email, walk in. It's a public office, right?
Wow. So, nice. Okay. Let me see. I think I have a few more questions, and then we can wrap up. What does it mean to you to represent both your constituency and the broader Somali and immigrant communities in Alberta? And most importantly, when your time as an MLA is over, however, whenever that is, could be 10 years from now, what do you want to be remembered for?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
It says, what does it mean to you to represent both your constituency and the broader Somali and immigrant communities in Alberta?
I do represent the geographic boundaries that I was. At the end of the day, these are the people who will elect me, and they are the ones who entrusted me to represent them. That is, but I won't deny that there are people who, regardless, who don't see the boundaries, but see me as their representative, and I respect that. So basically what it means is like added responsibilities. I feel like I have more responsibilities than other, and it's not legislated kind of a responsibility. It is kind of a moral responsibility that I
like
that I carry on with myself, and I try to live up to the expectation of that. In terms of legacy, when somebody says the first, it comes with that kind of load as well, right? Like there is a lot that comes to my mind. I'm like, okay.
Is it heavy?
It's heavy. You don't want to feel like, oh, the first was the one who did that too. It goes into the history. So I'm quite careful of that, and I think one thing that the legacy that I want to be remembered with, I want to encourage. young people who feel they do not belong. I want them to feel they belong here. I want them feel that they can be who they want. I go to, like last week was a reading week. Reading week is at a literacy week that we encourage kids to read more, and we as adults go and sit down with kids and read for them.
Wow.
So I went to about 5-7 schools last week in my writing, and I did read for grade 6s for the most part. I think I did read for grade 1s in one of the schools. When I go and start reading, before I read, I introduce myself and my role, and questions come, and a lot of kids from immigrant backgrounds who look like me usually ask questions of what do they need to learn to become an MLA.
That's big.
Which so I want to encourage them. They see themselves in me. They see that there's a possibility of future in there. And by the time that I decide not to continue as an MLA, I hope there will be others who will follow suit and demonstrate that.
That's a beautiful legacy, because it's you're blazing a trail for others to follow. I think that would be all the questions.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry I don't have many more.
No, that's good. I need to jump into calls.
Okay, yeah. Do you have any last words? And we can wrap this up.
No, I think that is good. I think this was a good opportunity to
Thank you.
To have the conversation. It's also reminds me to reflect in the past and also reflect what it means future. So it was a good opportunity. Thanks, Emeka.
Thank you. And I want to thank you, listeners out there. I promised you we will continue to find content that inspires, content that makes us, think about where we're from, what we're doing here. I know that there's an episode I promised you. I'm still scouting and trying to hold down this lawyer. I found him, but we have to create time for that to happen. From me to you, this is the Agege Bread podcast. My name is Emeka, the man, the myth, the legend. Bye-bye.